The Autism Research Institute relies on the generosity of donors like you to make this webcast possible. If you enjoy this presentation, please consider making a donation. Thank you.
These webinars are made possible thanks to generous donor support. If you'd like to contribute, visit our website at autism.org. Now, before we get started, I'll introduce our speakers. Lisa Latten is a family navigator at the URMC supporting families, and Caitlin LeGros is a certified nurse midwife with the URMC Midwifery group. They're both active in the special needs parenting community. Suzannah Iadarola is a pediatric psychologist at the University of Rochester Medical Center, specializing in diagnostic evaluations for children for whom there is a suspected autism spectrum disorder. Lisa Luxembourg is part of the interdisciplinary team working with providers in the physical developmental pediatric clinic, the feeding team, and quality improvement projects within the division of the URMC. Now I'll turn it over to the group.
We're going to start with a general check-in. So maybe doing an internal level set about how we're doing and really providing a space to do reflection on how this is actually going for all of us right now. So I'll give us a moment of pause to think about that individually, and then let our panelists kind of share what their experience has been like a little bit so far.
I know in my house, we are having moments of major dumpster fires, and I'm trying very hard to remember that I don't have to have all the answers today, and I certainly don't have to have the answers when the crisis is happening. So this is very reflective of how my house is functioning at times.
This is Caitlin. I agree with this analogy. We were both frontline providers in the hospital during COVID, and also trying to school our children and follow their lessons, and just none of it's really working. So it's hard to go from a highly organized plan to something that's just not working on multiple levels, and then catching on fire and then rolling down the driveway. So there we are.
Thank you both for sharing that experience. And I'm sure that it really does align with the experience of many people in the community right now. So I think one of the first things that we really wanted to say here was that those feelings of anger and anxiety and grief that we're probably all feeling are okay and natural. We are all going through somewhat of a grieving process right now, right? So many of us are grieving how our old lives used to be, the social connections that we're losing, just the ability to feel stable in our routines and our health of ourselves and our loved ones. And so what we're really doing right now is almost grieving that life without worry that we don't have anymore. And there might be many of us who are grieving in a more traditional way too, who might be grieving those who are sick or who we have already lost to COVID. And so I think one of the first things we all wanted to do was just give everyone permission to have these feelings. And again, I will let the panelists join in and share their thoughts about this.
This is Lisa Luxembourg. I am currently working from home, which is a totally new phenomena for me. So trying to reach out to families and support them through my job as a social worker at developmental Peds, and also take care of myself as my family sort of functions upstairs because I'm in the basement. So it's been a new normal for me, and I take it day by day, because when I think week by week, it's overwhelming.
This is Lisa Latten. One of the biggest things that I quickly learned trying to homeschool my child with autism, work from home, and my husband is a teacher, so he's trying to do Google Classroom and support his students, is that my life is not going to work how it used to work, and I really have to just surrender that my days are day by day. And that's hard for me because I really take control.
This is Caitlin LeGros. I'm a midwife, and so I'm learning how to do telehealth visits. We've completely changed our in-house schedule. We're changing how we do office schedules too. And my husband's doing a completely different job with trying to learn evolving knowledge on the COVID pandemic. So So I would say our learning curve is very high at work and at home. So I kind of understand how my kids are feeling stressed out during this transition of trying to learn a completely different way. And it's frustrating and hard to do on many levels. So we're trying to remain flexible. And honestly, sometimes we just toss everything out the window and make bread or go play outside or take a bike ride. And that's okay to do.
Right. There's definitely that underlying theme, I think, among all of your comments related to that it's got to be a one day at a time kind of life right now, and that many of us who have been used to living a very structured and planned life, that's an incredible shift. Hence, the focus today on really what support can look like for you. I think it was Lisa Latten who said that everyone's looking at you to make it okay. So let's talk about what that can look like for us. How many people out there are feeling like they're on overload? Just curious. Maybe taking a moment to reflect, letting people kind of add their comments to this, because I know at home, I'm trying to work full-time and school 2 kids from home. My partner is an essential person and not home a lot of the time. And so I'm certainly feeling the overload that has been echoed from others in terms of incredible opportunities to find balance in my life that I think is really missing right now. Any other comments about that? And I think that there kind of is a pressure to be fine because we are all in the same situation too, right? So it's a situation where we're trying to deal and grieve and be frustrated, but everyone else is too. And so I think somebody said that this is our new normal, and that's often what it feels like. So a question that we wanted to ask was, if you had to make a business card right now in this moment regarding all of your responsibilities, what would your job titles be? Here are some of the ones that we came up with. I think many people on this panel are feeling like these are roles that they're fulfilling right now. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that list that you might have thought of additional job titles for your business card in the meantime.
I'm a full-time scheduler. This is Lisa Latten. I feel like my son is very much structure-oriented. His schedule is very important and comforting to him. So I'm having to be very creative in terms of how I structure his day. But as Caitlin mentioned, sometimes that what I plan doesn't work. And so we get in the car, we take a drive, and we go get McDonald's French fries and drive around. And that's okay too. And taking a walk and doing those kinds of things, and also just recognizing that you're doing jobs that you didn't think you ever would be doing, and that's just how it is right now. So we need to be easy on ourselves with that.
This is Caitlin LeGros. I think what's different about all this list too is that in addition to this, my children are asking me to be their social interaction and their playmates at the same time. So it's challenging to try to make dinner and pretend to be Kylo Ren attacking people at the same time. So it's also constant task reacquisition. You're trying to do something else and being pulled in 500 different directions. So I identify with this information.
Yeah, what a great point. And I mean, as most of us probably know, it can be exhausting to be a completely participatory playmate under the best of circumstances. And then when you add it should get added to this extremely long business card that we're developing for ourselves. And then we also just wanted to recognize, right, that many, many people also have jobs that they are doing that are their regular full-time or part-time jobs. And so that the expectations for the vast majority of us in terms of our job responsibilities, the context has shifted, but the expectations haven't. And so that is a lot to expect of any person, and probably like really pushes the boundaries of what might be physically feasible. So, I think yeah, all right. So there are additional challenges, right? As a parent of a child with a disability, there could be additional worries that you're holding about what is going to happen to your child's development and learning, behavioral challenges, is my child going to regress or plateau in some skills? There's probably changes in everyone's eating habits and sleeping habits and flexibility. And so just giving us a moment to recognize these additional challenges, and certainly no one can speak better to that than Lisa and Caitlin, who are free to add any additional comments at this time.
This is Lisa
This is
Latten.
Caitlin LeGros. Oh, you go first, Lisa. Go.
Okay. I just wanted to add that it mimics what I said earlier in terms of trying to do everything that I think should happen within a school day and a work day. And I just quickly was able to recognize that that's just not going to happen. And it's really allowing myself permission that I don't have to do all of these things in a day, and it's okay. But that's a hard challenge. So parents that are listening, if all you can do today is just get through today and keep the kids fed, you're doing a great job. And I mean that seriously, because that's how our home is functioning. Some days I'm just happy that he's fed and he's happy, and we haven't had any meltdowns about a lack of schedule.
This is Caitlin LeGros. I would just add, part of my job is working overnight sometimes. And on the days afterwards, when I haven't slept at all, I have to really lower my expectations. And during this whole pandemic, no one is really sleeping in my house at all. So I just kind of have to lower our expectations, both for myself. I know I have less patience, and I know for my children, they're more tired and prone to whining, and they just can't do the things that they did before. So I guess in some way it's good to kind of recognize that no one's sleeping, and that affects everything else that we do.
Mm-hmm. So in honoring all of these multiple responsibilities and challenges that everyone is balancing right now, let's just do a quick moment to reflect on the fact that we cannot be everything to everyone all the time. Mm-hmm. It may feel like that's what's being asked of us right now, but that also may not be possible in the way that we would have envisioned 4 to 6 weeks ago.
This is Lisa Luxembourg. One of the things that's happened in our house, which is surprising to me, is my college-age son, who's now home. Towards the end of the day, he gathers the whole family and says it's time for recess, and forces us outside to play old-fashioned games in the street with each other, hit golf balls, and that's not something that I would have really expected. And it's been a great positive because it's brought our family just a brief, half an hour, 45 minutes of family time outside, getting fresh air and being together. So what I kind of learned is when those moments come, listen to them and take advantage of them. And it's okay to stop what you're doing and take that time to spend with your child that wants the family time together.
Thanks, Lisa. So in recognition of that, I think that we have to kind of acknowledge that there's a significant lack of control that we're all dealing with today. And basically what's going on our earth outside the boundaries of our homes is very much beyond our control right now, and much more beyond our control than it usually is, which is a hard thing to struggle with. And so what we want to talk about today is where can we really find control within what goes on inside. And when I say inside, I mean inside our homes, but I also mean kind of inside our minds, inside our emotions, and inside our experience. So really what we're hopefully encouraging today is just a little bit of a shift in our mindset. And really our mindset is a little bit set on survival right now. We're all having to alter our thoughts and expectations in order to kind of get through what is going on, which really harkens back to the point of all the panelists about taking this one day at a time. And so really today what we hope to focus on is really not about like setting up behavioral strategies, or these are skills or educational opportunities you can do with your kids. Like, I'm sure you've all taken advantage of those kinds of resources. What we want to focus on is like, what can be done to kind of shift your experience so that you have a mindset that supports emotional wellness during this time, because you all deserve it for all of the things that you're doing for your kids and for your families. Anyone else want to add to that from the panel?
I just want to add, this is Lisa Latten, that we've been very honest with our son regarding what's going on and explaining to him in very simple terms, like that people are sick and that's why we don't have school, and that's why you can't go get a haircut, and that's why we can't go through the car wash, which is one of your favorite activities. So talking to him honestly about what's going on, because I think this is a real opportunity for us to show our children how we respond to stress and model, you know, that this is hard and we're trying to get through it together, and just trying to maintain that sense of, because our kids are looking to us to reassure them, because this is a scary time and everything that they know is very different. And when you layer in a child that has limited verbal, I know that I've seen a decrease in his anxiety as I've talked about that, and he understands, you know, and will repeat back, you know, people are sick, school is closed. And I think we need to make sure that we're giving our children those concrete pieces of information so that they can understand it better.
Thanks, Lisa. So in terms of some opportunities, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Caitlin.
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is Caitlin LeGros, that our mindset in our house previously had been acknowledging emotions and then trying to fix a problem. And recently, we've just all had to acknowledge that we're feeling sad. We can't go to the places we wanted to before. And my children are younger. They're 4 and 7. So they don't quite understand what's going on. And we've had to kind of accept that uncertainty. And that's been a different thing for us to do. So in terms of changing our mindset at home, that's been most helpful, to just sit and acknowledge that those things are sad and they can't really understand why we're doing it, but we can try, and we can go visit the places we miss in the car, like school and the car wash and the science museum. And that's okay to do for now.
Right. And honestly, it's quite an accomplishment at times, especially during chaotic times, to even be able to have a sense of what's going on emotionally and acknowledge that emotion. Like that is a win for sure. So one of the mindset shifts that I think Lisa and Caitlin had brought up is extremely important is expectations around what's going to happen with learning, and that we should be probably expecting that there will be some plateaus and potential regression in our kids' skills. And I'm going to stop there and let Caitlin and Lisa really talk more about this, because this was a point they thought was really important to share with you all.
This is Lisa, and this again was something that I recognized about the second week of our quarantine, is that my child probably will regress in some academic skills, but he's making huge gains in other areas. We've really focused on a home and careers block in his schedule, and he's learning how to start the dishwasher and how to start the laundry and switch it out and bring up the laundry when it's finished. So there's things that maybe I wasn't as concerned about before, but now I have more time because I'm home with him. So there's things like that that I see growth in, and I'm okay if some of the academics aren't as structured as they would be in school. I don't have a classroom set up in my living room, and it's okay. Like, I just, again, want to just keep reiterating to the parents that are listening, like, give yourself a break. You don't have to have it look like that. You don't have to have all these apps and all of these things ready to go from 8 o'clock until 3 p.m. every day. Like, we need to give ourselves a break.
Well said. I think the other thing to acknowledge is that, you know, in the provider world, and I would expect that many of you have spent a lot of time being encouraged or even maybe feeling pressured at times to do everything that you can to support your child's development at all times, even if it's to the sacrifice of yourself or your own experiences. And so we thought that it would be really important to have this team, like the 4 of us here, we are medical professionals, behavioral professionals, psychological professionals. And we want to tell you that if your child experiences a plateau or a regression, it's going to be okay. Everyone is going to be catching up. everyone is losing learning opportunities right now, regardless of diagnosis. The vast majority of you, I am assuming, are not trained as teachers, and you can't be expected to provide the same kind of learning opportunities as what occurs in school. And so just keeping it in perspective that this is something that's happening along with others, and it's going to be okay. Everyone is going to catch up. Okay. Lisa alluded to this in her comments, that one kind of mindset shift that can happen is, instead of focusing as much on what kind of academic progress is made, to focus on what other types of learning might be happening around the home. She gave the example of dishwasher and other types of home activities. This could be an opportunity to focus more on life skills development with your children. And so I don't know, Caitlin, if you had examples of this that you wanted to share. Because I know you've been doing.
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity to focus on your child's strengths. My son loves linear type tasks around the house, such as mopping the floor in a certain direction, sweeping. He has his own vacuum. He has 2 lawnmowers, and he also has a leaf blower. So now is a great time for us to be practicing taking care of the house, which weeds not to pull, how to clean and mop the floors, just because they're honestly interested in that. So this is the first time we were able to kind of expand on those skills that he has. And I think he can find a different way of feeling satisfied that he can help be part of the family and clean up. And he's very excited about that. Lisa, I don't know if you guys are doing something similar.
Yes, we're very much doing that. Like, it's a focus on, we've kind of joked, I feel like we're returning to simpler times around our house. Like, we bake and cook most every day and are doing very much like home skills that I would hearken back to like my grandparents' days. And, you know, I'm enjoying it and he's enjoying it. Like, he's having fun. Like, I can tell, like, he's happy with how this is all going.
That's great.
And this is Caitlin again. I would just add one more thing, that it's kind of an interesting silver lining that our children get to lead the learning at home.
Yes.
For example, Owen can just say, I want to go for a bike ride. And I'm like, great, let's go. Before it was, you know, after school, we had a limited time. I didn't have opportunity, but now we can really just pivot in a different way and in a way that's more flexible. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
And it's so important to remember that, you know, the perspective of child development teaches us that all learning is learning, right? Learning is not restricted to academic or pre-academic skills or even work skills. It's learning how to play a game and be socially with others and how to ride a bike or how to show initiative and express your interests at home so that mom and dad kind of follow with what you're doing. And so all of this counts as learning. So learning is still happening in every moment that you have with your child, whether you feel like you're facilitating it or not. All right, so hopefully the takeaway from here is that you have permission to let go of your usual high standards during this uncertain time. And that's true for your standards for yourself and your standards for others as well. We acknowledge that this group in particular tends to just be overachievers and have very high standards for what they're doing and how they're supporting their kids' development, and that it is okay to loosen that a little bit right now.
And I feel like with this is Lisa Latten, that I really want parents to get a Post-it note if you can and write this down and put this on your fridge so you see it. Like, give yourself permission to just let some of this stuff go. We don't do that enough. We're all like, I feel like within the developmental disabilities world, we're always feeling like, I have to do this. My child needs to learn this. You know, this is the next set of skills. This is an unprecedented time and we are not prepared for it. So it's okay not to have all the answers today. So write this down on a Post-it and put it on your fridge. And before you get your morning coffee or whatever you're doing, read this and take a deep breath.
Great. We talked a little bit about what also might help you set yourself up for a situation where you feel okay letting go of some of these things. And I'll let Lisa and Caitlin kind of share a little bit about their thoughts about what you can do to keep as consistent a routine as much as possible, in case that might just set you up for success a little bit more. So Lisa, I know one of your ideas was like the importance of trying to keep people get dressed in the morning if you can.
Yes, we have do we have a slide for that, Suzannah?
So that slide about, that's a little bit later. This is more about like the general routine, like to the extent that you can keep it possible.
Yeah, so that's really important. We are still getting up like we would during school and still trying to have breakfast at the same time, lunch at the same time. We pretty much have snacks throughout the day, so I really can't say we're on a snack schedule because, you know, we eat goldfish 24/7 over here. And whatever, I've given up on that. But I find that like he'll ask like 11:30, mommy, schedule, lunch, schedule, you know, and then he comes down and he points to the schedule that we have on the fridge. And now, mind you, that's a nice schedule I put up, but we don't adhere to it every day. However, we do adhere to wake up, breakfast, and lunchtime. Those don't change. So that has been really comforting for him, obviously, because he'll just, say that every day. And we also have built in a time for him to do a field trip with his dad. And the field trip sometimes is just driving into the city and looking at the waterfalls in the city or the buildings he really enjoys. And, you know, he'll come home, mommy, field trip, and just things like that that he's enjoying, and that schedule on the fridge that he goes back to look at. Because typically during the school year, we have a weekly schedule that has all his activities. So when he gets home from school, he can see, you know, if he has yoga class or if he has a piano lesson. So even though everything on there we don't do, there are certain things that are done, and he expects those every day.
Thanks, Lisa.
This is Caitlin LeGros. This is a funny question because I literally just threw our schedule in the trash yesterday.
Nice.
Because it wasn't working at all. So we still need a schedule. It's much more fluid than I thought it would need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So just another example of me needing to be more flexible. And I'm still a little mad that my schedule didn't work, but you know, whatever. So you do need to get up and put clothes on. Our days just work better when that happens. I've tried it both ways. Today they both insisted on wearing costumes, so I said that was fine. As long as we're kind of doing it. It does help us at least to make a schedule on a whiteboard every day, so it's a little bit different. I'm sure everybody who's on this call will find their own way of doing whatever that is. Maybe you want to just pick one thing to do whenever that will be, or a goal that you have for the day or the week. For example, like making cookies, or my daughter wants to make a Lady Gaga costume and do a music video. So that's our goal, I guess, for the next couple weeks.
Sounds fun.
Right. And, you know, they're really struggling with school this whole week. It's been really, really bad because I've worked a lot. And so I just told them I've made a behavior chart with just 2 boxes to say, it's not a schedule, but it kind of is, just saying like Thursday and Friday, you will check this box of behaviors that are good, or you will not watch Trolls on Friday. And that's been very effective. So not exactly the same as a schedule, but at least some expectations, because that's what a schedule is in some way. So whatever that looks like for you, it's okay.
Yeah, and that's such a great segue into this idea of like really what the right thing to do is just focusing effort on whatever is important to you. And so like the schedule might be important to some families, and in some families it might be, the schedule might be more effective in the trash can than it is on the refrigerator. And this relates to broader things too. One of the things we talked about was like whether, you know, is everyone feeling a certain way about all the educational packets and links that you're getting from the school and from Facebook pages? Like, can we all agree that enough is enough right now? We shared some pretty intense feelings about all the resources that are being shared with us, and that we've had enough of them, and discussing that sometimes self-care is like just deleting that email without opening it, like a tiny little thing that you can do that can make you feel better, or taking that packet and throwing it in the corner or the trash because you just can't take any more right now.
And this is Lisa. I will admit, just yesterday, I got another packet of information from my son's school, and I did put it in the trash can. I just can't anymore with the emails and the this and the that. I'm like, enough. So if my son's teachers are listening, I'm sorry. I did send them a lovely email stating, I'm a little overloaded. I'll reach out if I need some help. Just kind of a nice way of me saying, like, please stop.
And this is Lisa Luxembourg. I think Lisa makes a good point that to reach back out and say what would be helpful to you. So it's okay to say, this is not helpful to me at all, and I need to put a stop, but I still need information from my teacher, my kid's teacher, or from the kid's doctor, or whoever that person may be, but reach out in your way that makes you feel accomplished, and don't worry about if their way of doing things is not helping you at all and you're ignoring it and choosing to take a different path. That's okay right now.
Very much related to this idea of balance, like letting go doesn't have to be letting go of everything completely. Like there can be a balance between letting go of some expectations, but also advocating for what it is that you need. And sometimes what is most important to you in the moment might be asking for support from providers around helping your child. Right? So we have to balance this idea of like, no, we're not going to set up a district approved classroom in our living room, but we also are allowed to ask people for help and for resources and for guidance to support our kids' development and learning. Any other thoughts about that? Okay. And to kind of bookend this idea of taking it one day at a time, I'm going to let Lisa Latten introduce this slide.
I have this as a coffee cup. My favorite color is no pants. I'm just happy that my child will wear pants. And I have to tell you, 80% of the time, he's in his boxers and t-shirt. We have a big window upstairs where he watches his TV and garbage truck videos. And on more than one occasion, my neighbor has told me that he's out in front of the window, but he does have boxer shorts on. He hasn't been caught naked yet in the window, so it's all good.
All right, so that's a little bit about some of this mindset shift that we can expect and maybe aspire to in the coming weeks. There are also some strategies around like rethinking how social support looks right now, because we know that social support is one of those really protective factors against things like stress and anxiety and mood withdrawal. And so being creative about how we can keep our social support networks going during this time, virtually or from a distance, could really help promote more emotional wellness on all of our behalfs. And I would imagine that our panelists have some creative ideas that they've used in terms of how they've maintained interactions for themselves and for their kids.
This is Lisa Luxembourg for myself. Our friends arranged playing Trivia Pursuit last week, and so on FaceTime we each had the board and the same set of questions, and we played Trivia Pursuit for about an hour and a half together through FaceTime. It wasn't the same as being there, but it was a nice interaction with our friends, playing a game which we probably wouldn't have done in the past. We would have just sat around together and talked, so this was a nice distraction for everybody involved.
Great, thank you.
This is Caitlin LeGros. My high social needs daughter has been playing War with her grandmother on FaceTime for up to an hour at a time. They both have their own set of cards. So I love that you said that example, Lisa. And we've been calling and FaceTiming our grandparents a lot, which has been really helpful as well. They actually can read books and do some parenting. So if you can get away with it, sometimes that's a little bit of a break for us as well. We did have kind of a sad experience yesterday. We went to Owen's best friend's house and we tried to do a visit through the door, which just left everybody absolutely in tears. So I just want to say it's okay to make mistakes, like not mistakes, but try new things that might not work as well, because some of our kids just aren't going to be able to understand what actual social distancing means. And it's really hard for kids in general to see things that they want and can't have. So hugs to anybody who's had that experience.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment about relying on extended family virtually at times. My kids' grandparents have been trying to do a couple times a week some FaceTime with them, and I sent my parents kind of like some ideas of like what kind of activities can you do over the phone, and just that little bit of guidance for them has helped them keep the kids entertained for like 45 minutes, which is like worth its weight in gold in my house right now, and I'm sure in yours too. So that's a really good point. This might also be a good time to just do a little bit of a reset on yourself, like thinking about your personality style. Like extroverts are probably dealing with this situation in a different way than introverts are feeling it differently. And so it might just be a good time to give yourself space and tap back in with yourself to say, like, what do I really need in terms of my social interactions with friends or colleagues or families to keep myself going in a way that I feel supported. And that's okay too. Like, not all social interactions have to be geared around the family or around the child. Like, you deserve your own connections with others during this time. It's more important than ever.
This is Lisa Luxembourg, and I would say, you know, if reaching out to your social connections is not really helpful for you, but taking quiet time for yourself to have a cup of tea or read a book or do an art project without the rest of the family participating, that's okay too. Figure out a way to get that time carved out for yourself that you need to have your quiet space to regroup as well.
So this is a self-care menu that Caitlin had used on a previous webinar. Actually, she might have developed it. And it includes information on what you can do for yourself if you have seconds, if you have minutes, if you happen to have an hour or longer, but at least this could be a reference that we hope might inspire some creativity in terms of what you can do for yourself.
Yes, this is Caitlin. This is something I did develop with special needs parents, because if you're like me, you do get frustrated with other people's well-meaning but totally not applicable advice. So I wanted to break this down into things that you can actually do. Everybody can turn their phone off and take 10 seconds of silence. You can feel really great about a small thing that you've done. You can do 5 seconds of self-care, putting some lip balm on, going for a walk, you know, all those things exist, whatever they are for you. There's slightly longer things that you can do, but really we just make a list of the things that you like to do, because I don't know if you're like me, but I forget actually who my friends are and what I like to do sometimes because I'm just feeling really tired, or I just need that at my fingertips. So feel free to take those things that you need. One of my coping skills is to read books. So I really love that. And I've started some new hobbies too, now that I have a little bit more time too. We're baking a lot more. I'm learning the guitar, which is a totally different way of using your brain. So I encourage that. I would say mindfulness and meditation feel like very overwhelming words. And there are a lot of great resources to break that down into apps and things that are at your fingertips. Full disclosure, everybody who tries this, it's really hard. And that's okay. You're supposed to be that way. But I think that you will find that this can change your life, because it certainly has for me. So I hope you find that helpful.
Caitlin, thank you for sharing this with us. It's a great segue too into just talking about generally supporting mental health, which is kind of like the underlying theme here, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more explicitly now. And there might be a lot of reasons that you decide to seek mental health support, and it just might be like in this moment you just think you need a little bit of extra help or another sounding board that might be a little bit more objective for you in your life. Recognizing that it can really help with underlying stress or anxiety that might be there below the field of your awareness. So we all have thoughts or emotions that are happening that we're not aware of, but they could really be affecting us very much on a day-to-day basis. And so sometimes dedicated mental health services can help bring those to light. Or you might just decide that you want a dedicated space to process your emotions because you don't get a chance to do that often in your busy work and parenting and additional responsibility lives. It can also have some really important multi-directional effects with all of the people in your circle. So our mental health affects our kids' mental health. It affects the mental health of our partners, how well everyone's getting along, how effectively we work together. And so really supporting everyone's emotional wellness is good for the whole family. And Lisa Luxembourg, do you have any additional thoughts about that as a licensed social worker?
I would just say that, you know, this is a new time for everybody. And if you have a bad day and you snapped, or you just need to go and cry and you can't take that personal space to do that, it's okay. Give yourself permission that everybody has bad days. We all have those days where we're not nice to another person. And if you can just acknowledge that we're all going through a hard time, and it's okay to have those bad times, and whatever you can do to make up for it and take care of yourself, that's what you should be doing.
Thank you for that reminder. We did also want to just touch on, you know, here are some reasons that you might definitely want to think about seeking support from a mental health professional. If you ever feel like your worries, or like you have pervasive negative thoughts that you just can't stop and they're there all the time, if that negativity or anger or other kinds of worries you think are really getting in the way of you being able to live your life, if they're causing changes in sleeping or eating or other kinds of daily functions, or if you feel like you're having unwanted thoughts of hurting yourselves or others that really you can't control, those are all signs that this really might be a good time to seek out mental health support. Also acknowledging that, like, our threshold for this might be a little different given the certain circumstance. Like, we're going to have more worried thoughts than usual, but if you kind of notice some of these patterns cropping up, definitely seek some support, and we're going to offer you some strategies for doing that. It also might be a good time to rethink your relationship with mental health services in general. Like, this might engender more openness toward the thought of getting services. I have talked to a lot of people who never would have thought of talking to a therapist before, but right now, like, all of a sudden that's looking like an option that they might want to pursue. And so you might have your own personal process and, like, becoming okay with asking for help in this way. And it might be a good time, if you're feeling this shift, to just learn a little bit more about the mental health service system. You might have different thoughts now about, like, how therapy or even medication supports could help you in a way that you wouldn't have considered before. And that's all natural and perfectly okay. And it's okay to seek information about these things without dedicating yourself to them. And so I'll let Lisa, who is the expert in kind of accessing mental health services and what that might look like, explain some options for you.
So I think that Lifeline is everywhere. It's a generally 211 number, and they're sort of a clearinghouse for information. So they are trained in mental health and also have resources elsewhere. So if food is running low and you need some assistance in finding out what you can do about that, if you're having housing or financial issues, also mental health issues. So it's generally a good number. There is a crisis text line that will connect you to a mental health professional. So if you're not comfortable on the phone, you just would rather reach out over text chat, feel free and do that. That number is there. There is a website called psychologytoday.com. They also have a magazine, so you might be familiar with it. When you go to their website, it says find a therapist. You can put in your zip code. It takes you to a second page once you push enter. And on the left side of the second page are lots of filters. So if you're looking for somebody for your child, there's a breakdown of age group, insurance, diagnosis. And many of the therapists on there are currently doing teletherapy. So they are still taking on new patients. There's a way to do it through a secure app. Sometimes they'll just do a phone call. And I think most mental health therapists currently realize that people are under a new stress and anxiety that none of us could have really predicted, and none of us could have planned for or known how we're going to react to it. So if you feel like you want to give it a try and reach out, then I would say feel free and do that. As Suzannah said, there's no commitment. So if it's not the right match for you, that's fine. Move on and try and find something else that is going to help you. If you are more of a person who has that one or two friendship that's your always go-to person, feel free and do that as well if that works for you. Also, all counties tend to have mental health centers that take adults and children and take Medicaid or most insurances. So I would say reach out to your county mental health center as well. I can share that my go-to is I walk with one or two friends almost every weekend, and it's our time to kind of support each other and talk things through and get things off our chest. And I have not been able to do that, and that's been hard, but we found some other ways to connect and still talk. So, you know, try and think of what your go-to was before and find the new way of doing that still.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa Luxembourg leads the Latten, and Caitlin also did some work to find some additional mental health supports. I believe you're getting a copy of the slides. So we just have a few slides that include resources that we'll let you explore later on. And we wanted to end the session really by highlighting a strategy that Caitlin brought up and included in her self-care menu, which is mindfulness or mindfulness meditation practice, which can be a way to kind of just reset your mind and your mood for the day. And mindfulness is really about taking those underlying thoughts or feelings or sensations that might be distressing or pleasing to you that often kind of exist below our level of awareness and bringing them up so that we're aware of what's going on with us. And that gives us more control over how we respond to different situations. And we don't have the time to go into a big discussion about mindfulness today, but I did think we could facilitate a quick mindfulness practice if you want to get a little taste of what this is like. It should only take a couple of minutes, and then I'll let the rest of the panelists share some ideas about how to integrate this kind of practice into your day-to-day. And as Caitlin mentioned, if this is your first time doing a mindfulness practice, it might not be easy. It's not intended to be easy. Mindfulness is not about emptying your mind or letting all thoughts go. It's just about noticing what's going on with you. And so if it's okay, I'll lead us through a quick practice called the breathing space, okay? And so we'll start by bringing ourselves into the present moment by adopting an upright but not rigid posture, okay? Allowing ourselves to be dignified, get relaxed, potentially having your feet on the floor or some other surface below you. And if it's comfortable for you, closing your eyes, or at least letting them rest halfway, focusing a few inches in front of you. And taking a moment just to sit in the stillness. And begin by asking ourselves, what is my experience right now? Noticing any thoughts, or feelings, or sensations in the body. And just noticing them with curiosity, without judgment, just observing and identifying your experience, whatever it might be. It is okay, even if it is unwanted or uncomfortable. Sitting a few moments in stillness. And when you're ready, gently redirecting your attention to your breathing. Focusing on each in-breath and each out-breath. Noticing how the air fills your lungs on each in-breath and releases through your nose and mouth on each out-breath. Not trying to change the breathing in any way, but just noticing it with more deliberate attention. Perhaps focusing on each in-breath and out-breath as they follow, one after another. Using the breath as an anchor to bring you into the present moment, helping to tune you into a state of awareness and peace. Knowing that this breath as an anchor is always with you, you carry it wherever you go. In and out. And when you're ready, perhaps finding a new point of centering, bringing your attention to where your seat or your body meets the chair, the mat, or the couch, or if you're standing where your feet meet the floor. Noticing this point of contact between you and the surface below you. Feeling that centering and anchoring nature of the surface, knowing that it is holding you up and supporting you in this moment. Knowing that you are supported. When you're ready, finally expanding the field of your awareness around this point of support around your breathing, and extending your awareness to include a sense of the body as a whole. Noticing your posture, your facial expression, tension in your muscles. Sitting for a few moments quietly in this expanded field of awareness. And to bring us back, perhaps taking a deeper than normal cleansing breath, allowing this breath to return you to your everyday sense of awareness, bringing intention to bringing this awareness to your day, and perhaps bringing with you a little bit of something that maybe wasn't there before. Okay. So kudos to all of you who participated in that practice. That is one example of a brief practice, but there are many other kinds of mindfulness practices that you can fit into your day. And Lisa or Caitlin, do you have any thoughts to share about that?
I like to listen to ocean sounds after everybody's in bed at night. I come downstairs by myself and just say, Google, play me some ocean sounds. And I just rest by myself and it's quiet.
This is Caitlin LeGros. I have to take like a 7-minute walk on my way to the hospital, and I often listen to a meditation to just kind of calm down a little bit because I know I'm going into a stressful situation, and it helps more than it should. And when I can't go to sleep at night, which is every night, I listen to a meditation too, and often I will be thinking about their words instead of my thoughts, and that is very effective in helping me go to sleep.
Thank you. And we have a couple of slides of mindfulness resources. Many of them are free or have been at least made temporarily free right now so that you don't have to come up with this on your own. There are lots of apps that can help guide you through this. And sometimes you can do a 20-minute one, and sometimes they last 2 to 3 minutes, and you can just fit them into your day when you can. So just ending on a note of self-compassion, one of the tenets of mindfulness is also being kind and gentle to yourself. We really hope that that is the feeling that we've tried to encourage through this entire webinar today. It's self-kindness, it's self-forgiveness, it's being gentle and being present, and cultivating compassion not just for those around you, but for yourself, which sometimes can be harder than feeling compassionate for those around you. And I will let my other teammates here contribute their thoughts as well.
This is Caitlin LeGros. I just read an entire book on self-compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff, which was a total game changer because her perspective basically says we're all human, all these things happen. And it's surprising how little we say that to ourselves. So if you want to learn more about this, I highly encourage it because it's just a perspective change that is so welcoming and lovely.
And so sometimes, oh, go ahead.
That's okay. I would just say there's no manual that's going to work 100% of the time. So just give yourself permission that sometimes things aren't going to go that well and try again in a different way.
And just one final note, this is Lisa. I'm a big proponent of always telling people like around me that I work with and my friends is the voice in your head should be a kind voice and how you talk to yourself should be with love and compassion. And sometimes I don't think it is, especially for women. I think, we're always criticizing ourselves and what we're doing. So that voice should be nice and lifting you up. When, I looked in the mirror this morning, I had actually done my hair and put on some lipstick and earrings, and I was like, wow, I look good. I'm ready for the day, and it does help.
Wise words from everyone. Thank you. We are ending with resources. So some of the resources are about our favorites. So this is Lisa Latten's favorite quarantine cookies recipe, in case you'd like to try it. And you've been making flour, right?
If you can find flour and butter, this is a good thing to have.
Yeah. This is Caitlin's favorite quarantine cocktail, the Sidecar. an important component of being kind to yourself, eating and drinking. And then we have
this
research.
cocktail recipe. Oh, I just want to say, no, this cocktail was developed in New Orleans when things went sideways with some events they were going through. So that's why I included it.
Perfect.
Oh, I didn't know that context. That's really nice. Thank you. And then some resources related to mindfulness. These are some online resources, which include guided meditations and other types of guidance around practicing mindfulness in your day-to-day life. And then these are all mindfulness apps that we have found helpful. Many of them include very brief activities that can be done in the car, in your bed, in a closet, wherever it is that you can get privacy these days. And then, the last thing we want to do is overwhelm people with another resource document, but we did have our team come up with an organizational scheme for a lot of the resources that have gone around. And so it's one link that can take you to multiple resources, and they're organized by theme. So we're hoping that this could potentially be helpful for you when you're ready to approach resources again in this way.
And I will say this resource, even though, I worked with the people, we all did this together. It's really nice because takes all of those resources that I feel like we're getting inundated with, and it breaks them down by theme. It's just organized beautifully.
And so we had kind of fully intended to save time for questions, but I think once we start sharing personal stories, time always seems to go quickly. So here's all our contact information. If you have questions, I believe that all of these slides will be made available so that you can access all of the resources. And we really thank you for, in your busy days, taking up some of your time to join us for this discussion.
All right. Do you have time for just a couple questions?
Yeah, I do have to ask one question. This is Lisa Latten. I just want to know of everyone that's listening, like, who's wearing pants today? Or are you still in your pajamas?
And if you want to see their answers, it's coming up in the question section. So yeah, you can probably see that on your screen there.
Who is wearing pants?
Yeah, we'd be happy to field questions.
I have a few. I have a couple I wanted to throw your way. One is we've had some therapists on the line today. So people who are behaviorists working with families who wrote very passionate messages about how they really want to help. And they want the slides. So I'll be sure to share these afterwards when we send out the link. But also just asking about from your perspectives as professionals, what are the right things to say? When you're doing telehealth and maybe they're doing ABA online and the parents ask for help about just either moral support, or they're asking about maybe strategies that they can use at home when their children's motivational things that they might usually use can't be used. So, they can't earn points all week to go bowling on Saturday. So do you have any thoughts about that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought it was a great question.
That's great. So I'm going to defer first to Lisa and Caitlin, because I think that this is a question for parents, right? Like about what would be helpful for you.
Yes, thank you for deferring to us. I would say just please listen, because we know a lot of resources. But guess what? None of them are working right now. So we really need to find a new way. And I don't know about you, but when I don't understand my son's behavior, I just do a ton of observation. I sit down next to him. I don't say anything. I just observe. And so we really need from the professionals to listen to our observations and maybe try to fix it, and maybe try to give us some resources, but mainly listening to help us interpret what we're seeing at home.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I know.
Oh, sorry. Did you have something?
For me, yeah, I'm doing a lot of acknowledging. I'm like, I know this is hard to be home and everyone's sick and we can't go on our vacation that we were supposed to go on. I know it's on our calendar. I'm sad too, but we'll go another time. And I think it goes to what you said, Caitlin, is acknowledging that. And also, like, we eat a lot in this house. Like, I'm concerned after quarantine ends that we're all going to be like 10 pounds heavier.
And I'm going to pose this more as a question to Lisa and Caitlin about whether you think this would be helpful, because as a provider, I would think that this would be a good time to maybe reset with families and ask them like what their values are right now, because values about what's important to focus on might have changed during this time. So do you both think that that would be an appropriate place to start, or an appropriate question to ask?
Yeah, that's perfect, because it has changed. We've had to recalibrate.
Oh, and this is Caitlin. I completely agree. I just got a email from our speech therapist about all these resources, and I had to reply with, Owen has been barking like a dog for 5 hours. You know, like, this is my goal now. I need to bring him back to human language as opposed to the goals that you have here. And that has to do with his sensory resetting. So, you know, because otherwise the advice just stresses us out even more.
Right.
We're supposed to be doing something that doesn't actually reflect on our current situation. So we really need some great listening there and some ideas, and some ideas that you definitely know about that maybe haven't occurred to us, or a way that we haven't thought about the problem before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one other question that came up, just sort of an overarching question, was about routines, about finding easy templates or things to start from. Not necessarily that you use them prescriptively, you know, but that just, are there resources that you're aware of, or would you just get a whiteboard and write down, you know, here's where lunch is, here's where dinner is, and then fill in the rest? Have you seen any resources like that that you thought were helpful?
You could do a whiteboard, or we used a piece of construction paper, but those resources that we put in at the bottom from our division, there are templates in there, I believe. Correct, Suzannah? Because I remember looking at it. So you can do templates by day or week.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion.
There's a whole section in that resource guide dedicated to that.
Got it. Great. Thanks for clarifying that. That was a question that came up quite a few times. Like, I'm tired enough. I don't want to stay up till 11 making my kids' schedule. Yeah. Okay. Great.
I used a piece of construction.
Pinterest also has
workers.
Well,
Sorry, Pinterest also has a lot of schedules already in there. So if you're already doing Pinterest, it's a good place to kind of look.
Easy to download and print.
Email us. We'd be happy, you know, to talk with you more if you have specific questions. And we didn't get to it today, we're fine to answer those via email.
Yes, please reach out.